Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to watch them rip your entire world apart? That's what happened to me. Not from a stranger, not from an enemy, but from my own brother. He didn't just betray me. He stole the one person I thought would stand by me forever, my wife. For years, I believed my marriage was unbreakable. Emily and I shared dreams, laughter, and late-night promises. And Daniel, my brother, was always around, the golden boy everyone admired. I never imagined the two of them would cross a line so vile it would shatter everything. The night I discovered the truth, it felt like my chest had been split open. My wife's laughter, once the sound that made me feel alive, now echoed in my head like poison. And my brother, the man who had stood beside me my whole life, he became my worst enemy in a single heartbeat. But here's the twist. I didn't explode. I didn't confront them right away. I smiled, I waited, and I started planning. Because if they thought they could break me, they were wrong. Stay with me. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of revenge. Subscribe now, because you won't want to miss how this ends. It started with the smallest cracks, ones I almost convinced myself were harmless. Emily became distant. She'd pull her phone closer when a message came in, her smile fading too quickly when I walked into the room. At first, I told myself it was stress, maybe work, maybe nothing at all. But deep down, a gnawing voice whispered that something was wrong. Then came Daniel. My brother, always so charming, always with that smug grin like he owned every room he stepped into. I noticed how his visits became more frequent, how his hand lingered a little too long on Emily's shoulder when he laughed at her jokes. I tried to laugh it off, to bury the unease, but inside, my blood burned every time I saw them together. One night, I caught Emily texting under the covers. When I asked who it was, she said, "Just work." But the way her eyes darted, the way her voice cracked, I knew she was lying. Still, I tried to push it aside, desperate to believe I wasn't losing her. But the truth? I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And soon, I'd find the proof that would destroy me. The moment of truth came on a night I'll never forget. I came home earlier than usual, the house strangely quiet, except for muffled laughter behind the living room door. My heart pounded as I turned the handle, praying I was wrong. What I saw shattered everything. Emily, my wife, stood there, hidden in the shadows, watching the two people I loved most betray me in plain sight. My stomach twisted, my vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I didn't. I swallowed every ounce of rage and slipped back into the hallway before they saw me. Because right then, I made a choice. If they thought they could betray me and walk away untouched, they had no idea who they were dealing with. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while my fists clenched until my knuckles turned white. Images of Emily in Daniel's arms burned in my mind like fire I couldn't extinguish. Every second I replayed it, her laugh, his touch, until my chest ached with rage. I wanted to storm into their lives and rip it all apart. Part of me imagined grabbing Daniel by the collar, slamming him against the wall, making him feel the same suffocating betrayal I felt. Another part of me wanted to scream at Emily until my voice broke, to force her to admit what she had done. But I didn't, because rage is loud. Revenge, though? Revenge is quiet, silent, patient. So I forced myself to breathe, to bury the fire deep inside. I smiled at Emily the next morning like nothing had changed, even kissed her cheek. To Daniel, I acted like the same loyal brother I'd always been. They thought they were clever, thought their secret was safe. But I wasn't broken. I was waiting. And in my silence, I was sharpening a weapon far more dangerous than anger. My plan. Pretending became my new reality. Every morning I put on the mask, the smile, the calm voice, the look of a man who had no idea his life was rotting from the inside out. At family dinners, I laughed at Daniel's jokes while my stomach churned. I listened to Emily's stories as if I cared, even though every word felt like venom dripping into my ears. And when their eyes met across the table, when their smiles lingered a second too long, I forced my face into stone. No reaction, no cracks. But inside, I was screaming. It felt like swallowing glass every day, just to keep the act alive. I shook hands with my own betrayer, kissed the lips of a woman who had already replaced me, and told myself to wait. Because they needed to believe they were safe. They needed to believe I was blind. The better my mask, the deeper their guard would drop. And when it did, I was feeding it. With Daniel, I played the loyal brother. I'd ask about his late nights, offer subtle comments like, "You seem distracted lately. Everything okay?" Watching his eyes dart, the way his laugh came too quickly, told me I was hitting the right nerves. It wasn't about confrontation. It was about corrosion. Slowly, carefully, I wanted to watch their perfect little secret start to crumble under the weight of suspicion. And it worked. Emily grew restless, snapping at me over nothing. Daniel grew edgy, avoiding certain conversations. They didn't know it yet, but I was already inside their heads. And once I was in, there was no way out for them. Daniel had always believed he was the smartest man in the room. That arrogance made my job easy. He thought he was untouchable. Emily on his arm, his charm winning over everyone, his lies covered by a perfect smile. So I dangled bait I knew he couldn't resist. Over drinks, I told him about a can't-miss business opportunity. I framed it like a secret I wasn't sure I should even share. The way his eyes lit up told me everything. Greed had already hooked him. He leaned back in his chair, flashing that smug grin. "You've always played it safe, brother," he said. "Good thing you've got me to take the risks." His words dripped with condescension, like he was the genius, and I was just tagging along. I nodded, smiled, pretended to admire him, all while inside, I savored every second. His arrogance wasn't just annoying anymore. It was the very rope he was about to hang himself with. Because the moment he stepped into my trap, there'd be no escaping. He thought I was the fool, but soon he'd realize I was the one writing the script of his downfall. Daniel thought he was pulling me into his world, but the truth was, I was pulling him deeper into mine. Every move I made looked casual, almost accidental. A tip here, a connection there, whispers of opportunities, just slightly out of reach. He bit at every single one. The more I offered, the more he leaned in, convinced he was outsmarting me. What he didn't realize was that I wasn't giving him chances to win. I was giving him carefully placed traps, each one designed to tighten around him without him noticing. I never laid out the full plan, never gave him the full picture, just enough to make him hungry. That hunger blinded him. And Emily? She cheered him on, seeing Daniel as bold and adventurous compared to my steady caution. Let her believe it. The higher their confidence soared, the harder their fall would be. Because while they thought they were building a future together, they were really walking straight into the jaws of mine. And soon, he didn't actually have. All I had to do was give him a little push. I told him about a friend looking for investors in a quick-turn real estate deal. Nothing flashy, just enough detail to sound legitimate. I even hinted that I wasn't sure I could trust the guy, making Daniel feel like he was outsmarting me by taking it on himself. Of course, he jumped at it. He wired cash before the ink on the contract was dry, smirking as if he had beaten me at my own game. He bragged to Emily, telling her this was just the beginning, that soon they'd be rolling in returns. I could see the sparkle in her eyes. Not love, not faith, but the shallow excitement of promised wealth. But what they didn't know was that the money wasn't growing. It was disappearing. Slowly, invisibly, bleeding into debts Daniel couldn't explain and wouldn't admit. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Daniel couldn't resist chasing the next win, because greed wasn't just his habit. Greed was his weakness. Daniel thrived on reputation. He was the brother everyone admired, confident, successful, untouchable. So when whispers began to spread, I knew it would cut deeper than any blade. I didn't need to start rumors. All I had to do was nudge. A few concerned messages to mutual friends about Daniel's risky investments. A quiet word to a colleague about his strange spending habits. It didn't take long for the gossip to multiply on its own. Soon, I noticed the shift. People greeted him with polite smiles instead of admiration. Invitations slowed. His phone buzzed less. At dinner parties, conversations fell silent when he entered the room. Daniel tried to laugh it off, brushing away the questions with overconfident jokes. But behind his grin, I saw it. The twitch in his jaw, the quick glances, the sweat at his temple. He was unraveling. Emily noticed it too. The man she had risked everything for suddenly didn't seem so invincible. And the more she watched him falter, the more doubt crept into her eyes. But Daniel didn't realize this was only the beginning. His image wasn't just cracking. It was about to collapse. Emily had once looked at Daniel like he was a prize, bold, charming, exciting compared to the safe husband she had left behind. But the shine was fading, fast. I saw it in her eyes first. The way she studied him when he boasted about business deals that never seemed to pay off. The way her smile faltered when his phone lit up with calls he ignored. Her confidence in him wasn't growing. It was crumbling. One evening, I caught a glimpse of it firsthand. They were arguing in the driveway. Every word. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust. And the woman who betrayed me was learning, piece by piece, that the man she chose wasn't a savior. He was a sinking ship. And the best part? I didn't have to say a word. Their perfect little world was breaking itself apart. The walls around Daniel started closing in. His so-called friends, the ones who loved his parties, his money, his status, began disappearing one by one. Invitations stopped. Phones went unanswered. Suddenly, the man who once held every spotlight found himself standing alone in the shadows. I'd see him sitting at bars where people used to crowd around him, now ignored, scrolling through his phone as if searching for someone, anyone, who still believed in him. But no one answered, not anymore. Emily, too, had grown colder. Her laughter was gone, replaced with sighs and rolled eyes. She didn't hide her disappointment anymore. She wore it like armor. The sparkle Daniel once gave her had dulled, and now she looked at him like a mistake she couldn't undo. It was exactly what I wanted. For him to feel the kind of abandonment he thought only others could suffer. The kind I had felt the night I saw them together. And while he sank deeper into isolation, I stayed silent, watching. Because his loneliness wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of his destruction. By now, Daniel's confidence was cracking. And that's when I turned the screws tighter. I didn't need fists or shouting. I needed whispers, half-truths, and silences heavy enough to make him sweat. I'd ask harmless questions with hidden barbs. Rough week, huh? You look tired. Or, Emily seems distracted lately. Everything okay between you two? On the surface, it sounded like brotherly concern. But underneath, I was feeding the paranoia already gnawing at him. At dinners, I'd glance at my phone and smirk, saying nothing. His eyes would flick to Emily, searching her face for a reaction. Sometimes I'd excuse myself to take a call and return with a knowing smile, as if I had secrets he'd never touch. It worked. I watched him fidget, watched the doubt spread like poison through his veins. The golden boy who once strutted through every room now glanced over his shoulder like a hunted man. And the beauty of it all, I never had to accuse, never had to reveal. I wanted him to live in the silence, drowning in suspicion. Because every time his eyes met mine, I wanted him to wonder, had I already won? The traps I set were finally snapping shut. Debts were piling up, whispers were spreading, and Daniel's once perfect world was flaunted. I just need a little help, he muttered, staring at the floor. Alone, just to get through this rough patch. You know I'll pay you back. I almost laughed. The same brother who stole my wife now stood in front of me, begging like a child who'd lost his toy. I kept my voice calm, my face sympathetic, but inside, I was savoring every second. I told him I'd think about it. He thanked me like I'd just saved his life. What he didn't realize was that I had no intention of saving him. No, I was tightening the noose. And soon, he'd know what it felt like to choke on betrayal. The cracks between Daniel and Emily had widened into gaping fractures. Arguments that once happened behind closed doors now spilled into the open, sharp words slicing through the air for anyone to hear. One evening, I passed by their house and caught them mid-fight on the porch. Emily's voice was cold, her arms crossed tight across her chest. You promised me stability, Daniel. You said we'd have a better life. Daniel's face was pale, sweat glistening on his forehead. It's just bad luck, he stammered, his voice cracking. Things will turn around, you'll see. I just need more time. But it wasn't conviction in his voice. It was desperation, and Emily knew it. The man she had gambled everything on was falling apart, and his excuses were nothing but paper shields. I stood in the shadows, silent, drinking in every word. This was what betrayal looked like when the fantasy burned away. Regret, anger, and two people clinging to the lie that it had been worth it. But I knew better. And soon Daniel would too, because what was coming next would make this argument look like child's play. Daniel wasn't just losing money anymore. He was losing his grip on reality. Every time I saw him, he looked worse. Bloodshot eyes, jittery hands, a nervous tic that made him flinch at the sound of his own phone ringing. He started drinking more, too. Neighbors whispered about the shouting late at night, the bottles piling up in the trash. The way Emily's once bright smile had hardened into a mask of bitterness. One night he cornered me outside my office, his voice low and frantic. "Someone's messing with me," he said, eyes darting around. "Clients won't answer my calls. Deals fall apart last minute. It's like someone's pulling strings." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my expression unreadable. Inside, I was smiling. He was finally starting to suspect the truth. But he had no proof, no idea that the strings were in my hands all along. I clapped him on the shoulder, feigning sympathy. "Maybe it's just bad luck, brother. Happens to the best of us." But Daniel didn't look convinced. He looked scared. And fear, I knew, would only Daniel's touch. The fire between them had burned out, replaced with cold resentment. One evening, Emily stormed out of their house, suitcase in hand. Her voice cut through the night like a blade. "I didn't leave one broken man just to end up with another," she shouted. Neighbors peeked through curtains as Daniel chased after her, begging, "Please, Emily, don't do this. We can fix it, I promise. Just give me one more chance." His voice cracked, raw with desperation. But Emily didn't even glance back. She climbed into a waiting car, slammed the door, and disappeared into the night. I watched from across the street, hidden in the dark. My chest tightened, not with sadness, but with grim satisfaction. The woman Daniel betrayed me for had finally abandoned him. He stood there on the curb, broken and humiliated, his cries echoing into the silence. And in that moment, I knew my revenge wasn't over. It was just entering its most devastating stage. Daniel's life unraveled faster than I ever imagined. With Emily gone, his reputation ruined, and his debts suffocating him, he spiraled into a pit of despair. I heard he'd been kicked out of the business clubs he once flaunted. The same men who used to toast his success now refused to even shake his hand. Creditors hounded him day and night, their threats growing louder, more dangerous. One afternoon I saw him sitting alone on a park bench. His suit was wrinkled, hair unkempt, eyes vacant, a shadow of the man who once strutted around like he owned the world. A nearly empty bottle dangled from his hand. I approached and he looked up at me, tears glistening. "I've lost everything," he whispered, voice trembling. "Emily, the house, my business. I don't know what to do." For a moment, he seemed like a broken child, not the brother who had betrayed me. But then I remembered the nights I cried alone, the trust he shattered, the knife he drove into my back. I leaned down, my voice low. "Now you know how it feels." But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Daniel showed up at my door one stormy night, drenched in rain, looking like a man who had crawled through hell. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling as he tried to steady himself on the doorframe. "Please," he rasped. "You're all I've got left. I just need something. Alone, a place to stay, anything. You're my brother." For a second, I let the silence stretch, watching him shiver under the weight of his own desperation. The same man who once boasted about the door and let him drown in the storm outside. And in that moment, I realized this was the final act before the curtain fell. The storm outside roared, but inside my house there was silence, the kind that comes only after victory. Daniel had begged, cried, and fallen to pieces at my doorstep, and I had turned him away, leaving him to choke on the very betrayal he once served me. Days later, I heard the news. Daniel had sold the last of his belongings, his house foreclosed, his so-called friends cut ties. He was nothing but a name whispered with pity and disgust. Emily was gone, living her life far from the ashes he left behind. And me? I stood taller, not because I had destroyed him, but because I had reclaimed my power. His downfall wasn't just revenge, it was justice. He took my wife, my trust, my peace of mind, and in return, I took everything. Do I feel guilty? Number. I feel free. For once, I'm not the one lying awake at night wondering, why me? That burden belongs to Daniel now. So, if you've ever been betrayed, remember this. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is patience, and watching karma do the rest. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this, darker, deeper, and unforgettable.